Alrighty, very well. We're going to go ahead and get started. I appreciate everyone taking time out of your day to join us. Hopefully, all of you are safe, dry, not underwater. I live here in South Carolina. We had Tropical Storm Debbie come through and move up through North Carolina and moving up the East Coast. So I do hope all of you are well and safe. Perhaps some of you will be watching this later with the recording. So let's go ahead and get started without delay on the topic today. Topic today is going to be protecting print jobs from prying eyes. So we're going to look at ways that we can modify jobs or help protect them, make sure they're encrypted so that users don't have them intercepted by nefarious individuals during communication or while in transit. I saw a message pop up here from one person that says, cannot hear you. No one else is telling me that in the chat, so I'm assuming that everyone can hear me. So you may need to check your audio if you cannot hear me. A couple other housekeeping items. While we're going, if you have a question, please put it into the Q&A window. That helps me keep track of it. You can put them in during any time. But instead of using the chat window for questions, the Q&A really helps me keep things organized. I see another individual put a message in that you can hear me, so that's great. I'm glad that the majority of the folks on the call can hear me. As always, we start with a few challenge questions as well, or challenge scenarios. So our first challenge. My customer requires fully encrypted network communication with their environment. That's kind of a technical sentence, right? But let's kind of think about it and peel the layers back a little bit. When information moves across your network from point A to point B, whether it's internal on your network or even especially external on your network, encrypted communication makes sure that all of that information is ciphered or encrypted or scrambled. You've probably seen some spy movie before where they're showing us, oh, it's been encrypted, the hard drive's encrypted, and all of the information appears to be jumbled. That's what we want to accomplish, because that makes it very difficult for someone to intercept our information and look at it that should not be viewing it. A second challenge, my customer requires encryption for data at rest. So by comparison to the first point, when data is moving in transit, we want it encrypted. But when it's also resting, when it's being stored, i.e. a follow me print job, because with MyQ, those are held on the MyQ server. They're not held in the Windows print spooler, unlike some other options in the marketplace. But with MyQ, our jobs are held on the hard drive of the device waiting for release. In that case, we want those jobs to be encrypted at rest as well, to add another layer of protection. Third challenge, my customer requires watermarking of all printed content. This is something that I've had come up many times. When users print out information, organizations want some type of watermark or stamp automatically applied to those jobs so that they can see maybe who printed it, the date and time, what computer it came from, things of that nature. So we're going to show you a way you can do that with MyQ as well. Fourth challenge, my customer requires the ability to audit user history. They want to go back and see who printed this file or how many they printed, what time of day they did it. So we're going to look at how MyQ can address those as well for you. So as always, that wraps up the presentation. Very clean, straightforward, just getting our topics together. Let me switch around and change my monitors for you. Hang on one second. So I'm actually going to start today with an application called Wireshark. You may have heard of this before. This is an application used to monitor and analyze network traffic. So I'm running this on my computer and it's monitoring the network adapters or network cards on my computer. This could be commercial firewalls, commercial routers. They typically have this type of capability. This is also something that a nefarious individual may be on your network and utilizing something like this to capture data or capture packets as they move across your network. So you can see here, my Wi-Fi adapter's got a lot of traffic going on. I'm going to monitor this one, and you're seeing everything now. This is all the traffic coming off of my network adapter. But what I want to do is filter this only for communication with my printer here in my office. So I'm going to put in that IP address. And we see a few things already happening. So when my computer, the source here, is communicating with this destination, the MFP, you see this protocol, TLS version 1.2. Well, I've got MyQ running on that MFP, and this is MyQ checking in, kind of like a heartbeat. It's making sure that it has a connection with the MyQ server, and because this is using transport layer security version 1.2, I already know that this is an encrypted traffic, encrypted information moving back and forth. What I want to show you is just using a typical print driver. So let's pretend MyQ's not in the equation. Let's pretend that I'm just going to send a print job to this device. So I'm going to come down to Microsoft Word. This is a test print for the webinar. I'm going to press File. I'm going to press Print. And I'm going to select RM Home Office, Robbie Morris Home Office. This is my device here at home. And I'm going to press Print. Now what happens, we see right here, a print job was just initiated. This print job is using port 9100. This is what is known as the raw printing port. Let me stop this so it doesn't run anymore. And just so you see that I'm not pulling any tricks over you, if I look at this device and I look at the port, it is using port 9100, raw 9100 to this address, which is what you see here. 192.168, port 9100 right here in blue. And notice it's using the protocol TCP. TCP is an unencrypted protocol. So if I right click on this communication and I use this feature called follow a TCP stream, I see all kinds of information about this print job. It came from Microsoft Word. By default, it's got today's date, 11:07:40, and then the milliseconds when I printed it. I can see what application it came from. I can see the user who sent it. Now, the rest of this looks like a lot of gibberish. However, this can be easily interpreted using open source tools off the internet. This is actually what's called a PRN file. If I were to capture this PRN file, I could then use that to reproduce this print job. So this is part of the danger of sending jobs on your network in an unencrypted manner. And then even here for the really technical folks, this is the hexadecimal information. You could also use this to even modify a job or make changes to it. So the main point we're taking away here is when using that port 9100, all that job is under the TCP protocol, which is a plain text protocol. We want to wrap these jobs. We want to wrap them in a layer of security, such as we saw TLS up there earlier. So I'm going to close this Wireshark. We don't need that anymore. And we don't need this Microsoft Word file anymore. We want to look at a couple ways that MyQ addresses this challenge. So one is the way that we bring jobs into MyQ. There's multiple different protocols for that. LPR, that's one. By default, the LPR protocol itself is an unencrypted protocol. We have this one called IPPS, the Internet Printing Protocol Secured. The S stands for secured. And you can see this is recommended for Windows, Mac, Linux. This is also how we can integrate with Chromebooks. If you have managed Chromebooks, we will send all those jobs using IPPS, which means they are securely sent via IPPS. Let me highlight that right there. Those jobs will be wrapped in encryption for us. I'm going to demonstrate a few of these other options as well. Mobile, email, web, those are all other ways we can bring jobs into MyQ. So this is one, Internet Printing Protocol Secured. We can use that to encrypt these jobs. By default, that is an encrypted traffic. Another tool that we have is called the MyQ Desktop Client. Now, the MyQ Desktop Client, that is typically used when we need to interact with a user. Let's say they're a law firm and they're charging back to clients. When they press File Print, the MyQ Desktop Client can pop up and it'll ask, which client do you want to charge this to? Or we've done webinars in the past where we can use it to change or encourage behavior. If a job is greater than 10 pages, prompt the user to duplex the job. Those are all features of the MyQ desktop client. However, another feature is secure print forwarding, secure print job forwarding. So in addition to the IPPS protocol, which is encrypted by default, we can use the MyQ desktop client to encrypt the LPR protocol. All these protocols are just different means or methods of communication. We have several options based on the customer's environment, the manufacturer of devices they're using, the print drivers they want to use. That's all a matter of determining which method we utilize. But like I'm showing here, with secure print job forwarding, what will happen is when a user presses print, the job is sent to the MyQ desktop client on their computer. The MyQ desktop client will process that job, and then it will communicate with the MyQ server to send that job and have it processed. Now, we were talking about jobs in transit, communication over the network. That was our first challenge point. Our second challenge point was jobs at rest. So how does MyQ do that? Well, here on what we have called the Easy Config utility, this is the application on the MyQ server. It has a few things in the security tab for us. Number one is you'll see it says allow unsecure communication. So by default, when MyQ is installed, it is already running in a secure communication mode. That's why when I had the Wireshark capture running, you saw the traffic in TLS between my computer and the device. That's because we're running in secure communication mode. If you actually want MyQ to run in an unsecure or insecure communication mode, you have to come here and toggle this option and then press save. So you really have to go out of your way to make MyQ run in an unencrypted or an unsecure mode. Now, I was talking about those jobs at rest. This is where the data encryption feature comes in. You'll notice that we have the ability to encrypt the MyQ database, the MyQ log database, the print jobs. These will be jobs at rest. These are all off by default. I can't click these buttons because to do so, it requires me to go out and purchase a certificate from a certificate authority. This is a third-party company where you will submit your information. They will validate you are who you say you are. There's an exchange process you go for that, but then they send you back a certificate. So we would import that certificate into MyQ, and then we can use that to encrypt all of these data areas. You'll notice scan jobs are encrypted by default already, and that's part of when you set up MyQ. We generate a self-signed certificate, and that's what we're utilizing to encrypt the jobs in transit. So when a scan leaves an MFP and comes back to the MyQ server, it's protected during transit. We were also mentioning some watermark capabilities. So I'm going to come back here to the Jobs tab of MyQ, and I scroll down the page, and here's his watermark collections. If we look at this example, oops, I need to reload the page. Okay, there we go. I have different watermarks, and then I can apply these to queues into MyQ. Queues are how jobs are processed and rendered. So I have a default watermark here that says printed by username, and it's wrapped in parentheses. This is a variable or a parameter. So whichever user pressed print, it would superimpose their username here. It would also superimpose the timestamp. And you see we have a whole host of these available. Username, their full name, timestamp, what group they're in, what queue was used, the name of the job, like Microsoft Word you saw earlier, their computer name. All of these can be embedded on that watermark. And then you specify where you want it. Do I want it as a text or QR code or barcode? Where on the page? How big? And then how light or dark do I want it to appear? Now, this is important. This only applies to print jobs. This does not apply to copy jobs. Does not apply to scan jobs. These are print jobs that watermarks are applied to. So that's 3 of our 4 challenges we've already spoke about. The 4th challenge was the auditing, being able to go back and see who did this, how many, What was the name of it? There's two ways to do that. Here in the jobs page of MyQ, here's a few jobs that I've printed this week. And this is just default standard information that is collected. So if I double click on a job, I can see who the owner is. I can see which computer it came from, whether or not it's been printed, who it was printed by, some basic metadata, black and white, number of copies, duplex, simplex, things of that nature. These are all basic details that are recorded for all jobs. If I come over here to my all jobs list, you'll see a ton of them here. And this information is recorded in the database. You can set your retention period of how long it's available. All of this data is used in our reports as well. So I'm going to click the add button so that you see all the reports we have available. I'm not going to click on all these individually. I'm going to kind of scroll slowly through this list so you can see. Oops. Sorry. So you can see some of the different types of reports, like the expired and deleted jobs. That's a very popular one. Statistics in our general category. I'm going to scroll a little bit faster down to print jobs. You can see the daily summary of print jobs. If I come down even further to like users, session details, how many they did at a device, things like that. The cool part about all these reports, you can get them in a PDF, a CSV, Excel format, and then they can all be scheduled. So I have my project monthly summary report scheduled to run each month. I want it on the 1st at 5 a.m. And then you can specify the file format and email. So you don't even have to think about it. So if you want to do like a weekly audit or end of month audit, you can schedule these reports to have that data sent to you. You can review it. And then if there's something you need to look into further, it'll all be available to you. So if we think back to our challenges, information needs to be encrypted in transit while it moves across the network. So we spoke about two ways to do that. IPPS, the Internet Printing Protocol, secure port or protocol, excuse me. We talked about how the MyQ desktop client using print job forwarding, it can take the LPR protocol, which is unencrypted by default, but then it'll wrap it in encryption for job transmission. So that's two ways to transmit jobs securely in transit. We talked about jobs at rest. That's where we looked at generating the certificate to be able to encrypt the print jobs at rest. We talked about watermarking, the ability to add that stamp to documents that are printed, including user information, computer, date, time, things like that. And then finally, we looked here at jobs, both the jobs tab and the reporting feature to see how you can view metadata and history about jobs. There is one other feature I'm going to mention. It's not used a lot. That's why I saved it here to the very last. But we do offer, let me minimize some of these again so we get to where we want to be. This job archiving feature. Now, this is not a standard feature. This is a licensed feature. You do have to pay a fee to turn this on. But what it will do is when jobs are sent, when print jobs are sent, we can actually capture an image of that print job along with a metadata file and store it on your network. So if you wanted to go back a year, 2, 3 years later, you can actually retrieve what that print job was in its entirety. We can also do it for scans. So if you want to see what someone emailed at 3 a.m. in the morning, you could do that. For some manufacturers, we can even get what was copied at the panel of the device. Now, that's very manufacturer specific. So we'd have an offline conversation with you about which models, which devices support that. But with the job archiving, we can get the print jobs and the scan jobs that are done. This gets into that super, super big brother type thing. And also you have to think about the liability and risk there. People who are printing confidential information, which is kind of the premise of what we've talked about today. Do you want the liability of storing that data and then being able to go back and actually retrieve it? So I've been working with MyQ for many, many years now, and I have personally never had someone purchase this license for those reasons. They kind of like the idea, but then when they think about the liability, not so much. But I did want to point that out in the vein of this topic. and know that this is an optional feature with MyQ. Everything else I showed you today is a standard feature. There's nothing to license enable other than going out and purchasing that certificate. But other than that, all these features are standard with MyQ. So that is what I wanted to present for you today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. What we normally do at this point is we go in and do a little review quiz. If this is your first time joining us, the review quiz for the folks who finish in the top 3 by responding the fastest and accumulating the most points, we're going to make a donation to a charity of your choice in your name. And then after we finish the quiz, we'll go in and we will do the Q&A and answer those questions you may have. So let me get the quiz loaded up here. All right. I have to change my screen because it's a little hard for me to see if I don't make everything in full screen. So just 1 second while I do that, please. Screen. Go. All righty. Test your knowledge. Quiz instructions. On the next screen, you're going to be asked to input your first and last name. Please put in your real first and last name. If you don't put in your real first and last name and you win, it's very hard for me to get in contact with you to see where you would like a donation made. So put in your real first and last name. There'll be a button to join the quiz. At that point, get ready to respond. If you're doing this from your phone, don't let your screen go to sleep. All righty, so I'm going to give you about 15-20 seconds to get your names typed in. Should be prompting you now to input your name. Oh, it only shows 7 people are ready. We got to have more participants than this. I know there's more than 7 people in the meeting. I hope the quiz is working well for everyone. Okay, I'm going to have to move forward here in just a second. I can't wait much longer. There's another person joining in. If only 8 people are going to play, you've got some real good odds of winning today. Okay, we can't wait any longer. Here we go. First question coming up. By default, secure communication mode must be turned on manually during the installation of MyQ. True or false? Let's see how close you guys were paying attention. I emphasize this point pretty hard. Secure communication code is already on by default. It does not need to be turned on manually. All right, next question. By default, MyQ automatically encrypts which of the following? The database, the main database, the log database, print jobs, or scan jobs. Think hard about this when I showed you the 3 different buttons there, 3 different icons that were already disabled. Correct answer was the scan jobs. We automatically encrypt those. All right. We're going to see who's in the lead. Juan, Dustin, and Kevin, 3 in the lead right now. All right, next question coming up. Watermarks can be applied to copy jobs within MyQ. This is going to be a true or false question. Let's see if I tricked you on this one or not. Watermarks can only be applied to print jobs inside of MyQ. All right, 2 more questions. After this one, we'll see the leaderboard. Which MyQ application is used to encrypt print jobs from the workstation to the server? Is it the MyQ Job Encryptor, the MyQ Desktop Client, or the MyQ Secure Router? We spoke about this application for several minutes. The MyQ Desktop Client. The MyQ Desktop Client is what's encrypting the jobs on the workstation. All right. Let's see if we had a change in our leaders. Oh, Juan's still in the lead. All right, last question. Which protocol, print protocol, encrypts data in transit automatically? This is a tricky question. Think about it hard before you make your response. IPPS, that's the correct answer. IPPS is the one that automatically does it. We can do it with the LPR protocol, but that's where the MyQ desktop client becomes involved. And then the IPP is Internet Printing Protocol and an unencrypted. All right, let's see who our leaders were. Oh, Kevin moved up into the lead. Kevin won, and I'm sorry I couldn't see who was behind the logo there. That's great. Thank you all for participating. We'll be reaching out to you and following up to see which charitable organizations you'd like us to make a donation to on your behalf. So let me stop the screen share, and I'm going to look at the Q&A and see which questions I can answer for everyone now. Go ahead and get those submitted if you have more. There's some already here. Uh-oh, looks like a lot of folks, unfortunately, the quiz didn't load for you. I don't know why that wouldn't have worked. Sorry that you didn't get to participate, but it certainly did load for a few folks. So we'll go and blame Minty on that one today. Here's a good question from Josh. Does the desktop client cause a significant delay in the print job getting to the device? No, not really. You may have noticed when I had the text up there on the screen, it does say that it uses more network traffic, and that is true. But think about networks today. Most folks are using gigabit backbones in their network, so print jobs are going to move very fast across those. While there may be a few milliseconds added to it for the encryption, it's not going to be noticed by your user. So no, not much happening there. Good question, Josh. Don't see any other questions in the Q&A right now. I'll hang out another second. While we're waiting on that, a little new piece of information, not exactly related to the webinar today, but some exciting things. We have just launched an integration with eGoldFax. So if any of you are resellers of the eGoldFax service or eGoldFax platform, MyQ now has a direct API integration with eGoldFax. We're probably going to do a webinar about that soon in partnership with eGoldFax. Here's another question coming in from Chloe. Does MyQ work with all manufacturers? Does MyQ have the ability to work with other print software such as PaperCut or Uniflow? Okay, so two questions there. Yes, MyQ works with many of the major manufacturers in the marketplace. Epson, Canon, Ricoh, Sharp, Toshiba, Xerox, HP, Kyocera, Konica Minolta. Konica Minolta is one we don't have a relationship with. We have applied or requested access to the development program with Konica Minolta. We're still trying to work through that. So if any of you are Konica Minolta resellers on the line, let your Konica Minolta representatives know that MyQ would like to work with them. The second part of the question, does MyQ have the ability to work with other print software such as PaperCut or Uniflow? No, those would be competitors. Or as I jokingly say, I don't consider them competitors because I think our solution is so far superior. I say that they operate in the space that I operate in. But no, those would be competitive solutions to MyQ. Here's a question from Ken. If we are working remote and print signed into a Kyocera VPN, and I guess Ken works for Kyocera, are we already encrypted and protected? Yeah, so nature of VPNs means that the communication from your computer to the host you're connecting to over VPN, that would be encrypted, yes. Still could potentially be some other things, though, maybe when that job is at rest or that job is released. But typically a VPN does offer a good level of encryption and protection. VPNs are typically more technical. A lot of users don't understand how to use those as often. So these are some alternatives to that. Here's a question from Don. When is it required for this level of security? What common businesses inquire to use this? Well, you think about the nature of the world today, and we hear almost, I'd say daily now, if not hourly, someone being compromised, ransomware, malware, all these things. And the folks who are doing that, they don't generally discriminate against their target audience. Some folks go after major corporations or like hospitals. You've seen a lot of pharmaceutical ones lately. But then you also have the average mom and pop business. So to say that, you know, the bad actors are only trying to break into the network of these large scale customers, that's not necessarily true. They're going after the small folks as well, because anywhere they can gather that type of information and use it against them or use it to their advantage, they're going after those. So quite honestly, these are conversations I have with almost any customer we speak with, but especially customers who deal with highly sensitive information, banks, hospitals, educational entities. Think about anyone that's printing your personal information, your social security, your license information, your banking information. Do you want those entities printing that information insecurely? Well, anyone who's handling that data, you would want them to have this type of solution, perhaps. Don't see any additional questions coming in. We'll wait just another second, see if anyone's typing some in or not. Okay. See, don't see any others coming in. All righty. Thank you guys for participating today. I'm sorry Mentimeter had an issue. Unfortunately, it's out of my hands. That's just the platform we use. So I do apologize for that, but hopefully you'll join us for the next one. You'll have another opportunity then. Have a great Friday afternoon. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, everyone. See you next time.